family! So many of you have been asking for a new creepypasta video, and I want to apologize that they're so spread out. It's just that the creepypasta videos do tend to take the longest to make. That being said, I'm changing all that right now, and we're going to have a creepypasta week. I will be posting 3 videos this week, and all 3 of them will be creepypasta lists. So let's get to it. Number 4, self-preservation. If you're reading this, I hope it means I'm no longer around. 2 months have passed since the meteor struck. When it had first happened, it caused a media frenzy. Every news station around the world was in my hometown reporting it. Samples of the rock were shipped around the globe for each country's top scientists to study. If it wasn't for my job, I probably would have traveled down to the site like many others, and I'd be dead by now. A couple days after the impact, the hype seemed to have died down, but the meteor made a sudden resurgence in the news the following week, when it was reported that almost everyone that came in contact with the meteor was hospitalized with a horrible infectious disease that turned their bodies into something similar to decomposing corpses. A handful of people had already died, so the world began to scramble to find a cure. It was soon discovered that the meteor contained an alien strain of bacteria that broke down living flesh. My years of paranoia had prepared me for this moment. I ran back to my apartment and I sealed myself in. I barricaded the doors and stuffed towels into any cracks that led to the outside world. And I sat glued to my television like many others. It was found that by consuming a living creature, you could delay the progression of the disease. So the news encouraged people to catch bugs as they awaited a cure. But the alien bacteria soon grew resistant of the consumption of bugs and forced people to start eating larger and larger animals. As the weeks went on, the situation became more dire. On the same day that the news first reported acts of cannibalism, it was the last day of televised broadcast. At this point, the government advised everyone to stay indoors and for their own safety not to open their doors for anyone, not even their closest family members. As the days continued on, I watched the infected run rampant outside my window. They went door to door begging to be let in. Sadly, I watched my across the street neighbor give in to their pleas and open his door. A small group of the infected grabbed the man and dragged him out into his front yard and tore into his flesh. They feverishly apologized between each bite. Most of them were crying with mouthfuls of meat. It only took them 3 more days to end up at my doorstep. Their angered shouts kept me awake at night. I should explain to you why I'm writing all this. Yesterday, when running fingers through my hair, chunks of scalp fell to the ground. I'm infected, but I don't want to die. And I'm so incredibly hungry. Please, please, please forgive me for what I'm about to do. Number 3. The most beautiful creature. It was the first night in our new home that I saw her. The most beautiful creature that I ever laid eyes on. Directly across my window was hers, and she never seemed to close her curtains. It almost felt intentional, like she was inviting me to watch. I fell into her trap night after night, fixated on her pearlescent skin and her blood-red curls. I watched with jealousy as she invited a lucky guest over each night. I kept staring as she moved about them with such grace, like a ballerina on a stage. Her guest list was quite the eccentric bunch. They came from all walks of life and from many different social groups. But they all had one thing in common: their fate. Her performance didn't end when the dancing stopped. In fact, that's when the main act began. While she made sure to turn off the lights, the smooth metal of the knife would still create a glare from the moonlight. I could see the silver twinkle rise up into the air and plummet down out of view. I never heard any signs of a struggle, but I knew what happened when the blade rose again, covered in crimson. At the end of each night, she finished the show with an evil smirk aimed in my direction. It was exhilarating watching her performance night after night. I could feel myself becoming obsessed with the ritual. One day I worked up the courage to go meet her. I even bought a fancy new outfit and dyed my hair a bright blonde shade in hopes of impressing her. But before I could, my parents informed me of an impending move. They told me they feared for our safety with a local serial killer on the loose. What's even worse is that I couldn't protest, not even in the slightest, because if I did, I risked exposing the dark secrets between me and her. So I went without struggle, hoping our paths would cross again someday. It was tough adjusting to our new house. Change always brought about severe anxiety with me. Unfortunately, we moved quite a bit because of my father's work. A psychiatrist taught me a trick to soothe my anxiety from the summer I spent at the ward. He had me hang a mirror in my new room like a window each time we moved. It was always odd at first, but then I soon didn't even realize it was there. It's funny though, ever since my release, we've always seemed to move next door to the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen. And this time, she's a blonde. Number 2, I don't sleep anymore. On Sunday, I had a terrible dream. It was the kind where you know you're asleep and what you're experiencing all around you isn't really happening. In this dream, I stood in the outskirts of the woods just across from my house. I was staring intently at my front door. I knew in order to wake up, I had to get inside that house. After what felt like hours, I finally developed the courage to walk towards it. As I brought my knuckles up into the white chipped wood, I felt myself on the brink of consciousness. Bang, bang, bang! A surge of adrenaline woke me up and I was coated in sweat. I immediately anticipated another knock. After a few minutes, I was able to calm myself down by rationalizing the chances of someone knocking at my door in the middle of the night at the exact same time of me dreaming of knocking was very, very slim. Accepting it as just a spooky dream, I fell back asleep. But the next night, I entered my dream exactly where I left off. But this time, the door was already open. I entered the dark house and I went straight for the kitchen. I opened the cutlery drawer and pulled out a long, serrated knife. I caught my reflection in the shiny blade. But I quickly realized the person in my reflection wasn't me. The moment I realized the person grinning back at me in my reflection was a stranger, I threw the knife back into the drawer and I slammed it shut. Bang! Again, I awoke, my heartbeat filling my ears. This felt even more real than the last, so I crept down to the kitchen to check the drawer. Seeing as the knife was still there, I talked myself into going back to bed. The night after that, my dream began with a smiling stranger in my reflection. But unlike the other 2 nights, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. Wake up! Just wake up! You have to wake up, I kept repeating to myself as I walked closer to the bedroom door. The door creaked open and I saw myself laying in my bed. Wake up right now! I was struck with pure terror and exhilaration as my knuckles wrapped around the cool handle of the knife. As I approached the bed, I woke up with such determination that I fell to the ground. A wave of relief washed over me as I realized no one was standing at the end of my bed. But that moment was very short-lived when I realized I was gripping a knife in my hand, and that's why I don't sleep anymore. Number 1, don't go into the basement. Looking back on it now, I know exactly where it started, Mom. We had just moved into our new home. Its long corridors and hardwood floors squeaked under my running feet. I loved playing hide and seek with you, and you loved it too, Mom, as long as you didn't go in the basement. I told you I didn't like it down there. Even just staring into the oppressing darkness from the top of the stairs gave me the chills. Something was down there. I could feel its eyes on me every time I passed the doorway. I begged and pleaded for you not to go down there. But you brushed away my fears, calling them silly. And I started to believe you. I tried to overcome my fear by traveling down there by myself. And I shouldn't have, because that's when I began to notice them. At first, they just looked like shadows hiding behind things. But then I started to notice they had dusty yellow eyes and mouths full of razor blades. They moved about with such quickness that I usually only saw their blurred silhouettes from the corners of my eyes. But you could never see them. In fact, no one could ever see them. Only I could. I watched as they taunted you by misplacing objects and moving furniture. It started off pretty harmless until the day they left that handkerchief for you on your bed. You knew it didn't belong to anyone in our house. And when I tried my hardest to tell you they put it there to scare you, you laughed it off and mockingly thanked them for the gift. They didn't like that, Mom. That's when they began to whisper. It was incoherent, but it was still menacing. With each passing day, their resentment for our family grew stronger and stronger. One night, I was awoken by a thumping coming from the kitchen. I now know you wish I hadn't done this, but at the time I had to know what was producing that rhythmic thumping sound. Each step towards the kitchen lowered the temperature. By the time my feet reached the kitchen doorway, I could see my breath. But that wasn't what was so terrifying, Mom. One of the creatures, much larger than the rest, stood on the other side of the counter waiting for me. The air felt so heavy and I broke out into a cold sweat. We stood there, locked eyes for what felt like an eternity. From behind me, I heard some of them whispering from the hallway hallway that leads to your bedroom door. The next second, I was running towards your bedroom. I bust through the door and find Dad laying in a lake of crimson blood with a large steak knife protruding from the side of his neck. But you weren't there, Mom. Where were you? Did you hear them? Did you finally hear them whispering? Before even knowing it, my feet were running towards the basement stairs. There, I found you kneeling in front of the TV. Your body was covered in slashes and your face had blood all over it. Our eyes met and a piercing scream escaped your lips. I was startled and confused by your reaction, but then I noticed the creatures were surrounding us. Their quiet, hushed whispers grew to loud chants. They wanted me to kill you, Mom. And that's when I felt the cold steel handle of a chef's knife in my right hand. The chants, they grew to deafening levels, Mom. I stepped closer to you and I raised the knife above my head. And then I couldn't help but crack a smile. I told you not to ever go in the basement, Mom. Only bad things would happen down here. Why couldn't you just listen to me? Something tells me I'm not going to be getting much sleep this summer. And I'm okay with that. Thank you guys so super duper much for watching this video. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not yet part of our Radtastic community, well, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and join today. Until next time, bye!